we're going to be talking about something really juicy right now, and that's negotiation skills. That is from the book Never Split the Difference, written by Chris Voss, who is a much better person at negotiating than I am. He used to work for the FBI, and he used to negotiate for lives, like literally where lives were on the line. These are some tips to borrow from his book. Hopefully that you add these to your toolbox so it's easier for you to negotiate with a client who says, oh, this is too high, or I'm not sure about the project. First of all, active listening. What's active listening is basically when you're listening fully with all of your awareness and all of your attention to the client. We will follow it up with empathy and mirroring. So if the client is saying something about like how their child doesn't have enough space, or it's the house is getting too small for their needs, or they don't have enough storage for them to store these things, you need to be empathetic about it, and you must mirror it back to them. So you repeat what they said back. That's active listening. You understand and repeat it back. I can feel that it might be frustrating. You don't have enough space for your stuff to be stored in. So with that, you have already earned a little bit of trust with them. Also, you will label. So labeling emotions with the frustration, I just said frustration, but also labeling their worst fear. Maybe they're afraid, like what would a client be afraid of from hiring you or taking your pricing proposal? They might think your pricing is too high. Labeling their fear. So say, I think you might be afraid from the price because I know it's a hefty price tag. I can totally understand where you're coming from, but this is an investment for your home, and this is the value you're going to be getting. Whether it's a residential project or not, it doesn't really matter. The same technique works out. You need to be tactical about the empathy as well. So when you're labeling their feeling, their fear, you're able to be empathetic about it. You're able to feel it. And here, we're not manipulating. We're being completely genuine when we're talking like this. This is not manipulation, should not be used as a manipulation technique. We are genuinely coming from a place of curiosity. This is a good method to use with each other as well. And then you can use calibrated questions, so you can ask them, for example, if they tell you but the price is too high. So you can say, if your issue is only with the price, can you tell me if you have an issue with anything other than that with the proposal? You want to ask them very smart questions after being empathetic towards them. Do not compromise. Don't say, well, I will lower my price. Oh my God, that's the worst thing you could do, is say, okay, I'll lower my price for you, or I will give you a discount, or anything like that. You can always negotiate payment terms and all of that, but do not negotiate the price itself, except in a very, very rare situation. Also, address all negatives before proceeding. Make sure you say, oh, well, I know it's going to take long, for example, if this is their concern, or I know that this is a hefty price tag, as we said before, with labeling the emotions, or that you're frustrated, or that you wish for this term to be changed, or whatever it might be. Address these negative things. Once you're addressing the negative emotions, you give them a better reason to see the positives, because you already took that away from their head. I think the book does it a much better justice than what I'm saying, so it's a good idea to give this book a read if you want like extra resources in negotiation. There's also using silence. Yes, using silence is a very, very powerful technique. So after you give your pricing proposal, or after you give your explanation, or address all the negatives before proceeding, just make sure to use silence, because people are uncomfortable with silence, and they will give you like a better look into what they're thinking if they hear complete silence, because then it will be their turn to speak. There's also using no, not as a failure, but as an opportunity to understand the concern. An example for using no as not for failure, but as an opportunity, is to give them a question while they say no to, so they will open up. Once they say the word no, the conversation will immediately flow, and it will be much more genuine. Would it be not okay for us to discuss the project budget right now? So once they say no, psychologically, they'll be more prepared to say yes later on. And aim for that's right instead of you're right. So if the client is saying you are right, that means that they are trying to be agreeable. They're trying to agree with you. But when they're saying that's right about a notion, whatever it might be, then their principles align with the idea as a whole. They're not trying to please you. They are saying that this is something they align with. So yeah, these are some of the negotiation skills, and I really highly recommend you read that book. Well, in theory, these points are amazing, and I want to remember them all the time. I keep them in a note as well in my phone. There's an internal fear of negotiation that we have, and it's because when we hear the word no, we immediately run the opposite way usually. And there's nothing wrong with you if you feel like you have this fear of negotiation, or you'd say, you know what, for me, that's how I felt as well in the beginning. Anytime I heard the word no, or this budget is too big, or whatever it might be, I always felt like, okay, I don't want this client, I don't want to take this project, it's just not worth it. But in reality, we're all human beings, and it's okay if we pursue the perfect client. There are some clients who are better let go than to be continued with, especially if you feel like there's a deep-rooted behavioral issue with them. For example, if you feel like they're so cheap and they want everything cheap, then maybe it's not a good idea to work with them from the beginning. With negotiation, as in everything in life, it comes with practice. You have to practice it. I have a very stubborn husband, and I've started practicing the whole negotiation techniques with him. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Of course, I'm not trying to manipulate him or anything, but it helps me when talking to clients. It helps me that I've practiced this skill before, so I'm aware that I need to mirror their behavior, to be empathetic towards them, to actually have active listening, and that benefited me in my relationships as well. So this is something to keep in mind. We're gonna have a scenario right now of a common conversation to have, which is after you're presenting your price, the client expresses their concern by saying, this seems too expensive. So we're gonna have like a little scenario about it, and we're gonna talk a little bit afterwards. The first step is to acknowledge, I understand that cost is an important factor for you. It's absolutely okay if you have concerns about the budget. Everyone wants to ensure that they're making a worthwhile investment. So notice that we are labeling their fear, and that we are saying that they have a concern. We're acknowledging how they feel. They feel heard. We are empathetic towards them. And we're saying that we want this to be a win-win. So step 2, let's explore the underlying concern. May I ask what aspect of the proposal you find most concerning in terms of cost? So what part of this pricing proposal that I sent you feels out of line? Understand more specifically, and you can tell them understanding more about your specific concerns will help me address them more effectively. And then try to highlight the value after you hear them out. What you can do is also use the mirror technique and mirror what they're saying. You can start highlighting the value. While discussing the cost, I also would like to revisit the value you'll be receiving. My design approach is tailored to your specific need, and you can insert here what your unique selling point is, ensuring a personalized and high quality outcome that aligns with your vision and your timeline, or whatever it is that you might be offering as a value, as specifically for you as an interior designer. This is a good time to sprinkle it on. If it feels like they're still not sure, or you feel like they're puzzled across their face, that is the perfect time to give them the testimonial. I've worked on similar projects with client X, client Z. Be honest about it. If you haven't had that experience before, maybe don't communicate it. But it's important to say that this is a similar concern to what they had, and this is how we addressed it. And they thought the investment was worthwhile because of the aesthetic appeal, functionality of the space. You can show pictures, you can show your portfolio. This will be a huge plus on your behalf, and you can offer their testimonial if they've given you a testimonial. The last step, which is something that I don't advise to be used always, this is something very specific. If you feel like you align with the project, if you feel like you really want to work with that client, we can offer alternatives or flexibility. So if the overall cost is a major concern, we can explore adjusted scope, so we can remove something out of the scope. For example, we don't give you a 3D design, we don't do a rendering, we just do space planning. We can do like manual sketching, or we can remove this part of the offer. Maybe we don't do the site work, maybe we just can offer you design. So that is totally acceptable to do, but I personally would suggest that you only do that if you feel like you really want that project, because you are adjusting your fees to fit their budget, but it has to make sense to you, it has to be worthwhile to you. So step number 6, it's to reinforce the expertise and qualities. I assure you that the pricing reflects not only the quality of materials and services you'll receive, but my expertise and dedication to making your space exactly how you envision it. Promise what you can deliver. Okay, and always under promise, always over deliver. These are things that I'm still struggling with until now. I want to under promise and over deliver all the time, but I have to remind myself to do that all the time. Make sure that you are promising them something that you really can do. Here in step number 7, we will pull a little bit further. I'm here to work with you. I want to ensure you feel comfortable and confident in this investment. This part, if you get to this part, you need to be letting go. Like, give them a little breather for them to be able to discuss this with whoever that makes the decision in the household. My door is always open, which leads us to the last one. Leave the door open. Honestly, sometimes you're gonna get clients who don't want to work, or they're not ready to work with you right now. Stay honest and hopeful. I appreciate your honesty and sharing your concerns. I'm open to further discussions in the future. Please feel free to reach out after you've had some time to consider the proposal. Or thank you so much for reaching out. Thank you so much for considering me as a designer. I hope to work with you in the future sometime. Be winning either way, because you did try here your best to land the project. If it's like a big project and you really want to negotiate, then you either land the project or you build a relationship with that client where they will hire you when they're ready to work with you. There is a graphic designer that I love so much. I love her style. I love her work. And she charges like a hefty price tag on designing a logo. All the time I'm in my business, I'm thinking about how much I want to hire her, not only to design in my new logo, but also I want her to design my entire branding kit. So people sometimes are just simply not ready to purchase right away. They have their own agendas and they have their own needs. So if you get to this point, don't feel discouraged. You did the best you can, and you finished this strong.